This is Kath.
And he's Dave.
And today we're going to be talking about Windows Phone game programming.
In fact, did you know that over 40% of all apps on mobile phones are in fact games? And I think the reason is because that is where the money lies.
Yes, and another good reason why a lot of people get into programming.
So programming can potentially be quite complicated, but we want to give you an introductory session today to just give you a good grounding so that you can get started.
When developing for mobile devices, there are a number of challenges. Firstly is the limitations of the device, such as CPU, memory, and storage.
One of the other things to take into consideration is also interaction. There's no mouse or keyboard, but basically only the user's finger to work with on the screen, and that also affects how you design.
When building games, a number of skills are required, such as maths, physics, and art. So when building a big game, there are usually large teams of people that work on them. So let's have a look at what it takes to create a game. The first thing you need is a really cool concept, something that everybody's going to have fun playing.
At the same time, you also need some really cool graphics, because something that doesn't look good isn't going to be any fun. And oddly enough, one of the last things that people usually forget about is the sound design, which is incredibly important. It's not just about having a soundtrack or a song, but it's also about those little sounds like pa-doo, pa-doo, pa-doo when you're shooting something.
What you also require are tools which allow you to create applications. One of the interesting things is a lot of people specialize in each of these different areas. So you get people specializing in art, music, or programming. So let's create a game. The game we're going to create is tic-tac-toe. We're starting simple because that's the easiest way to learn a framework. So what do we need?
So you want your sound clips as well as your image files, because obviously you want to be able to build those into your game.
Yes. So now once you have those sound files and those image files, you need a toolkit. The toolkit is available at create.msdn.com, and you can download that for free.
Now, if you don't remember that, then you can also go at the end of the program, we'll have some links, or otherwise go to the Mindset website and go and have a look for the link there.
Yes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open Expression Blend and actually start creating our game. So what we're going to do is create tic-tac-toe. I'm going to open Expression Blend. I'm going to create a new project. It's a Windows Phone project, but there's a bunch of others that we can use. If you have a look here, we've got data-bound panoramas and so on, but we're just going to click an OK and create a normal app. So here we have the basic layout. There's a couple of items on the left-hand side on the layout itself. We've got our toolbox, application layout, and then we have some other tools on our toolbar. We also have a projects tab, an assets tab, and a states tab, which we can go in later. On the right hand side, once again, we have the properties tab, which gives us the properties of the currently selected item. What I'm going to go do is I'm going to go and delete all the items on the layout. I'm going to add a grid to the page, and then I'm going to tell the grid to fill. So I'm going to go auto size and fill. So now the grid's filling the screen. But now what I need to also do is add rows and columns so I can actually lay out my screen properly. So I'm going to go first add some columns using the column definitions. And add 1, 2, 3 columns, and I'm going to add 4 rows. So same way that you add columns, I'm going to add 4 rows. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and set the locations of each of those buttons. So I'm going to select it on the left-hand side and specify what row and column each button goes into. Repeat this until all your buttons are in the appropriate locations. Buttons allow us to interact with the game. I'm now going to place a button for each block. So first we need a couple of copies. To do this, we simply copy and paste by using the Ctrl-C and then Ctrl-V key combinations. We then need to modify each of these items so that each button goes into a separate cell. This is similar to using an HTML table, and it also allows us to span columns. However, this is not the only way to manage your layout. There is also a stack panel. This allows us to place things horizontally or vertically inside our screen. Or the canvas. The canvas allows us to place items in specific locations on that canvas. So we're still copy and pasting a few items. We're almost done. We only have 3 more buttons to do now. So copy and paste, and then what I'm going to do is modify the column and the row. I'm just adjusting the last block. What I need to do now is add a button so that I can actually go and reset the entire screen. So I'm going to add a button. To the screen, and this will be my reset button. Once again, I'm going to tell this button to fill. And it's spanning 3 columns, which automatically did for me. And then I'm going to change the text just to reset. I do that by double clicking on the button. So that's the basics of our layout done. So let's recap what we've just seen.
We were able to create the whole user interface without having to write any code. Blender's got some great drawing tools that allow you to draw straight onto the canvas and you don't have to code whatsoever.
So we've seen the easy part of it. Now let's go and look at the code and how we add logic for the game. So what I need to do now is I need to now go and wire this up with the code behind. I do this by going to the Events button at the top right and going to the Click field. I'm going to just give it a command name and call it Reset Button Click. Hit Enter, and now what it's done is gone and created that event in the code behind. We'll get into that a bit more later. I'm now going to go and bind each of these controls to their own button click. I'm now going to specify that button click function to each of the other buttons in the screen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and add a variable to the screen which tells me whose turn it is. So it's either X's turn or it's not X's turn. Then what I'm going to go to is when you click on a button, I'm going to go first and get the button that has currently been clicked. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and do some checking. I'm going to firstly check whose turn it is. So if it's X's turn, I'm going to go set the content equal to X. So what I'm doing now is I'm checking if the content of the button has been set. So has someone clicked on the button already? So is the actual content empty? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check whose turn it is. So is it X's turn? Yes or no? But I have a simple way of doing this. So what I'm going to say the content is equal to, if it's X's turn, return X, and if it's not X's turn, turn 0 or O. And then I just change whose turn it is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the turn to the opposition's turn. Another thing that I want to do is I want to go and set the background color of each button as you play. So I'm going to use a similar method used above, check whose turn it is, and if it's X's turn, I'm going to specify that its background color must be red. If it's Zero's color, it must be blue. So what we're going to go and do now is go and add the reset functionality. All this reset functionality does is goes and clears all the content on the buttons. So let's have a look at what we've got as the final product. So this is how we reset all the button states. So now I'm going to run the application. Let's run it. It's going to compile, launch the emulator, and actually start up the application for us. So here it's starting, and let's play our game. So now I can go and I can click and play simple tic-tac-toe. And hit reset. And there's our game, up and running without a problem. Now you've seen what it takes to build a game for the Windows Phone platform.
And whilst you're busy developing for games, you're actually learning a lot about development principles as well.
So if you'd like more resources, go to create.msdn.com to download the toolkit.
If you find that the toolkit's a little bit too big, because it is quite a couple of meg, then why don't you contact us on our blog at blogs.msdn.com/South Africa, and we'll get a CD with the resources to your school.